Alrighty, my friend. Let me see how long I can read today. I was on this chapter 7, remembering and forgetting. Let's see. Uh, on comparing to this, wait, not this one. Let's do this. The traditional view of memory and the one that persists among most of us is that it is something like a storehouse of movies on a computer's hard drive. This is a concept of memory analogous to the simple video camera model of vision I described in the last chapter, and it is just as misguided. In the traditional view, your brain records an accurate and complete record of events, and if you have trouble remembering, it is because you can't find the right movie file, or don't really want to, or because the hard drive has been corrupted in some way. As late as 1991, in a survey conducted by the psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, most people, including the great majority of psychologists, still held this traditional view of memory that whether accessible or repressed, clear or faded, our memory is a literal recorder of events. Yet, if memories were indeed like what a camera records, they could be forgotten or they could fade so that they were no longer clear and vivid. But it would be difficult to explain how people like Thompson and Ding could have memories that are both clear and vivid while also being wrong. One of the first scientists to realize that the traditional view does not accurately describe the way human memory operates had his epiphany after a case of false testimony his own. Hugo Mosterberg was a German psychologist. He hadn't started or intending to study the human mind, but when he was a student at the University of Leipzig, he attended a series of lectures by Wilhelm Wundt. That was in 1883, just a few years after Wundt had started his famous psychology lab. Wundt's lectures not only moved Mosterberg, they changed his life. 2 years later, Mosterberg completed a PhD under Wundt in physiological psychology, and in 1891 he was appointed assistant professor at the University of Freiburg. That same year, while attending the First International Congress in Paris, Mosterberg met William James, who had been impressed by his work. James was then officially the director of the new Harvard Psychological Laboratory, but he wanted to resign from the post to focus on his interest in philosophy. He lured Mosterberg across the Atlantic as his replacement, despite the fact that although Mosterberg could read English, he could not speak it. The incident that inspired Mosterberg's particular interest in memory occurred a decade and a half later, in 1907, while he was vacationing with his family at the seashore. His home in the city was burglarized. Informed of this by the police, Mosterberg rushed back and took stock of the condition of his house. Later, he was called to testify under oath about what he had found. He gave the court a detailed account of his survey, which included the trail of candle wax he had seen on the second floor, a large mantel clock the burglar had wrapped in paper for transport but then left on the dining room table, and evidence that the burglar had entered through a che- cellar, cellar window. Mosterberg testified with great certainty, for as a scientist and a psychologist, he was trained in careful observation, and he was known to have a good memory, at least for dry intellectual facts. During the last 18 years, Mosterberg once wrote, I have delivered about 3,000 university lectures. For those 3,000 coherent addresses, I had not once a single written or printed line or any notes whatever on the platform. My memory serves me therefore rather generously. But this was no university lecture. In this case, each of the above statements proved to be false. His confident testimony, like Ding's, was riddled with errors. Those errors alarmed Munsterberg. If his memory could mislead him, others must be having the same problem. Maybe his errors. Hey! Alright, going to have breakfast with my family. Thanks for reading. Let me see how many minutes. 5 minutes. Good.